Hey everybody, welcome back to Talking Sense. I'm Ben, and today I'm going to be having a butch at Issey Miyake, Noir Ambre. L'eau d'Issey pour Homme Noir Ambre came out in 2016. It is yet another flanker of the L'eau d'Issey pour Homme line, although to call them flankers is a bit of a stretch at this point. The perfumer was Christophe Raynaud, who's the offender who bought the world Papyrus Smell 1 million. So I would like to know what the hell Issey Miyake were doing when they came up with a brief that said we'd like something spicy, let's get Christophe Raynaud in. I mean, essentially that's like giving a box of matches to a pyromaniac. You just wouldn't do that. Fortunately for the world, Raynauds has learned a little bit of restraint since then, and this is not nearly half as bad as the bilge that is Papyrus Smell 1 million. So what's in this? The notes are on the top saffron, nutmeg, cinnamon, coriander. In the middle, papyrus, cedar, vetiver, leather. And on the base, amber, vanilla and tonka. Now, some of those are there, some of them definitely aren't there. There is no vetiver in this fragrance. If there's any vetiver at all, I could not smell it. I can definitely smell vetiver, and I could not smell it in this fragrance, not throughout the entire life of it in any of the wears. The leather is really, really subtle and barely worth talking about. It's not animalic, it's not strong, it's not sort of really part of the fragrance. I think it is in there, but it just works to kind of support and sort of soften and round things out a little bit. That's about it. But the rest of the notes, I think, yeah, I can smell them all. So let's give it a crack and talk about how it opens. Bosh. So the opening is pretty big, and it's definitely this like really spicy opening. It reminds me straight off the bat of a sort of gingerbread cookie dough, like raw gingerbread cookie dough. The saffron, the nutmeg, the cinnamon, to a lesser extent the coriander, definitely makes this sort of if anyone is from England and remembers Sainsbury's raisin and spice cookies, I think they were, that's what this reminds me of. It's definitely got that smell to that, which I think is just basically the saffron, the nutmeg and the cinnamon. But yeah, so they're definitely there, and they're like big on the top and definitely come through really, really strong on the opening. Underneath that, sort of supporting that, because they're quite like light notes, so you have to, this, you know, the support for those notes are a really big amber, and to a lesser extent the vanilla and the tonka. The vanilla and the tonka definitely play like a kind of backseat part to this fragrance, and I don't think they do a great deal. I think they work to just sweeten up that base a little bit and help support everything. The interesting note by far is the papyrus, and that I think is really clever in this fragrance, and it's a really hard note to pick. So before I had another fragrance which is also interesting enough, an amber fragrance, Bulgari pour Homme Soir, which is really simple, so it's quite easy to figure out what the papyrus was, but I wasn't entirely sure. But the notes in this one are bergamot, amber, Darjeeling tea and papyrus, and that's it. There's only 4 notes, so you can distinguish the papyrus in this quite easily, but I wasn't sure if it was the tea sometimes, but now obviously having both of these, I can kind of cross-reference it, and I can definitely pick out like what's the papyrus. So what does papyrus smell like? It's like this softly woody smell that reminds me of cooked rice, but lighter and fresher. But that's what it reminds me of. So you cook a bowl of rice and you stick your head over the steam and you sniff. That's sort of like a papyrus, but you have to add a little bit of touch of woods to that, and that's what I feel like it smells like. But it's lighter and, say, sort of glassier in a way. Another way that I could describe it it brings to my mind when I can smell it is like if you were to sniff a bottle of mineral water, like, which is almost no smell at all, but it has that sort of almost slight plasticky, glassy translucence to it, that sort of feel, and that's what I feel like the papyrus adds to the amber, and that's why I think it works quite clever in this fragrance. Because if you look at those notes, right, you've got cedar, vetiver, leather, amber, vanilla, tonka. They're all quite heavy beast notes that are just going to sit there and just drag everything down, right, and be quite cloying and oppressive. But with the papyrus, it kind of works just to lift them all up enough, because papyrus is quite fresh and quite light, so it works just to pick everything up and just sort of support it a little bit and drag it out of the gutter, basically. Because although this is quite a dark fragrance, I wouldn't say it's like seriously dark. It's almost like it sits in between light and dark, really in a comfortable position. So it's not like super fresh and light, but at the same time I wouldn't really say it's dark and moody and kind of dingy and dirty or anything like that. It's definitely sits in a really nice sort of comfortable level, where instead it's just warm, cozy, comforting, very close, I feel, to like a gourmand. I don't think it is a gourmand, but it's very close, and especially that opening with the kind of the very kind of saffron, nutmeg, cinnamon, that like they definitely gives you a cookie sort of feel. And then obviously you got the vanilla and the tonka as well. It does sort of work to give you that kind of like cozy blanket kind of feel. But the amber is obviously the starring player in this, and that's really nice. Amber's quite difficult to describe because of course it's like a fantasy note, but I always feel like it's sort of like a warm, resinous, comfy blanket sort of smell that has a very touch of sort of plasticness to it, or sort of plasticky sort of vibe. And in Ambre Noir, I think the amber's really good. I think it's really, really nice. I think I'm going to be honest, I'm not massively into ambers, so but for me it's a nice one, and I do appreciate it. I think if you're really into ambers, I think you would really, really, really enjoy this. For me personally, I'm not that fussed. I actually prefer Bulgari pour Homme Soir as far as ambers go, but I do think this is an interesting take on amber, and I do really like that mix of like very gentle gourmand sort of touches. The cedar in it is a kind of a bum note. I don't think it's got some sort of loose woods in it, but there's nothing so defined as like cedar. So I wouldn't say it's like a Virginian cedar, which is like a very rough, raw, pencil sharpening sort of wood. It's definitely not that. You know, sometimes you read note listings and they say woodsy notes. I would say it's more along those lines. I think they might be taking liberties with using cedar a little bit. And then the leather just works to kind of smooth and round things out. I don't think it's like a strong leather, but it definitely has a leather. And almost like a touch of incense in there as well. The vetiver, I don't think that's very strong in there. Perhaps that's what's creating that kind of subtle incensey sort of vibe, because vetiver can do that sometimes with that kind of spiciness that it's got. But I would definitely say it's not a strong vetiver. It's not a vetiver that you would point out and say, hey, that's got vetiver in it. It's much more like almost like an abstraction in the background. The main note is absolutely amber, papyrus, and then the notes on the top, the saffron, nutmeg, cinnamon, and then very underneath all of those things, just supporting it and just holding it all up, it's just a very soft, subtly sweet vanilla and tonka. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's a strong vanilla and tonka fragrance either. They do just work to just support everything, almost like a kind of backbone to the fragrance, really. I think it's pretty unisex. I think it leans a little bit masculine, but of course with those gourmandy kind of vibes, definitely think it's unisex, and in more like unchallengingly unisex, you know, like because I think pretty much everything's unisex, but this is unchallengingly unisex. You could definitely feel okay wearing this without any problems. Anyone could. I think it leans towards the evenings, but you can definitely wear it in the day. I've worn it in both, and I think it's suited. The only problem with that is the longevity is kind of suck. Well, it lasts for me about 4-5 hours, and at that point it's definitely like a really close in skin scent. I prefer my scents quite close anyway. I'm not like into kind of beast mode scents. For me, if I walk into a room and you can smell me, I've kind of done something wrong. Like I prefer, like, you know, you've got to be right up in my shit before you can smell my fragrances, and that's kind of how I like to wear fragrances. So that's, you know, the fact that I feel like the longevity is not great on it says a lot, because it doesn't really project or have any sort of kind of big efforts. After about 4 hours it becomes very close, very skin scent, and almost nothing. After 5-6 hours it's essentially looking at being gone. So the longevity is not great, and that kind of brings me to the next thing, which is the pricing and the weirdly exclusive kind of vibe of this fragrance, in that they sort of made it a little bit exclusive but not really, and they released it in some countries but not others, and it was like in duty frees but not in some duty frees. It was weird, so they kind of tried to make it this kind of like exclusive, kind of like a level of exclusivity, but not really. So it was kind of strange, and it basically just led it to being a total pain in the ass to get hold of, and the prices rocketing through the roof on the grey market for a while. It's coming down now, but sort of an interesting thing actually is I read a lot of people say, oh, you know, this is like niche. Well, I don't really understand that. I don't think it is. I think it smells pretty much nailed on in the designer realm, but you know, I also think that's weird to say that anyway, because there's loads of really good niche, and there's loads of really bad niche, and there's loads of really good designers, and there's loads of really bad designers. So, you know, how do you make that differentiation? Really, for me, it's not really about what it smells like or anything like that. It's more about the company behind it, and the kind of how that, you know, and obviously this is a designer behind this. You know, just because they've done a good fragrance doesn't make that niche. I don't know. So for me, the only thing that really makes this niche is the fact that it's slightly a pain in the ass to get hold of, and we all know that some niches can be a pain in the ass to get hold of. So really, you know, for me, that's the closest thing that makes this niche, is just the kind of weird exclusivity. So would I buy it? Probably not. No, not at the prices. I wouldn't buy it on the grey market with those kind of plus, you know, over £100 price tags. No way. Retail price, I wouldn't buy it. No. About half retail price, if it was discounted, I might consider it. And in fact, 2 days ago, I did get I could have bought one for 45 quid, which is like about half of the retail price, and I passed it up, which goes to show how much I think it's overpriced. I probably would buy another decant down the line some point, and if I got it at a heavily discounted price, I would buy the fragrance as well. I think if you're really into ambers though, I do think you would enjoy this, and I do think you would probably pay for it and be happy to pay for it as well, because it is a good one. But I'm just not massive into ambers really, so for me it's like, okay, yeah, it's all right. I like it, but I wouldn't like spend loads on it. Whereas, say, if you're really into ambers, I do think you would enjoy this, and I do think you'd probably find it worth at least the retail prices, or the prices that you can get it at reasonably now, which is about £80-90, I think. You know, it's, yeah, if you liked ambers, I'm sure you would be happy with this. I think it's really nice. For me personally, I still like Bulgari pour Homme Soir as far as ambers go, so I'm not massive into it, and I think these might be the only two kind of heavily amber based fragrances that I've got. And for me, I prefer Bulgari pour Homme Soir because I feel like it's a little bit more versatile, and you know, I feel like these kind of fulfill the same sort of role. I would wear them to the similar sorts of things, and I just think this is a little bit more versatile. But I do think it's good. So that's pretty much my review about Ambre Noir. I think if you like ambers, go for it. If you're not that fussed about ambers, you're not really missing out. I wouldn't worry too much. But otherwise, yeah, chuck in the comments if you've got anything to say. Let me know. Let's talk about perfumes. Nice one. Thanks very much.